Good morning, everybody. Fergus Dolan here from NALA. Delighted to have you here this morning for our Story Streets webinar. Story Streets, encouraging families to read together. And we're delighted to have Trish Nolan. Trish is from Carlow County Library Service, and joining her will be Teresa. Teresa took part in the project with her daughter in Carlow County Library. So I hand over to you, Trish, and all the best.
Thanks very much, Fergus. Good morning, everyone. Lovely to have you here. What I'm going to do today then is just have a chat about Story Streets and how it worked as a programme for us. I'm working in Carlow Libraries here, so it's something that we ran out around the county in 3 different areas. I'll start by giving you a bit of background on the project, how it progressed and what the outcomes were. And in the second half of the presentation then, I'm actually going to go along through the learning model in more kind of detail, if you like, and see how it can be used by your organisation. I kind of have approached this from an organisation perspective rather than a library perspective, but we can have a look at that, and if you have any questions, as Fergus said, please use the facility there, the chat facility, and we can get to them then at the end. As Fergus also said, we have Teresa. I'm delighted to have Teresa here today, and she has a lot to say about the programme that she attended with her daughter Zoe, and she'll tell us about her experience and how they found it. So again, as I had said, apologies, but oh, excuse me, sorry. First technical difficulty of the day. I had prepared this for other organisations, so I'd done a little bit about Right to Read. A lot of you library people will be familiar with it. For those who aren't, it's run by local authorities, and the aim of Right to Read is to support literacy programme and literacy development in their local authority area. And within each authority, the programme is led by the library service, and there's a Right to Read coordinator, that would be myself now for Carlow, and a local Right to Read network. So how it works is, since it started in 2017 and it rolled out properly in 2018, the focus has been on children and families, and that's where this programme fits in. So on our local network then, we would have somebody from a representative from the Childcare Committee, Community Development, ETB and so on. So people, relevant agencies in the county who'd have interest in that area. As an aside then on that, this year we've introduced a focus for adult services. So that might be something that will be of benefit or of use, something you might think of in future, to contact your libraries and the Right to Read coordinator about that. And the funding that you can see at the bottom right of the screen, the Dormant Accounts logo there, that funding matched by funding from Carlow County Council is what made this whole project possible, and that was in the form of a library supports grant. And this was offered as a support for removing barriers to access and improving accessibility. And there's a specific focus on communities and individuals at risk of being socially excluded, marginalised or disadvantaged. So that's where this fit in with our programme. Our Right to Read Action programme, as I said, it was focusing on children and families, and this project was seen as a way of kind of complementing the existing services we had and enhancing supports for several disadvantaged families who weren't engaging with the library service. So that was really our focus, was people who weren't engaging with our library service. So what was Story Streets? It's a family literacy research programme, and it was set in 3 disadvantaged communities in Carlow, and centred on reading together, family time, and introducing the world of the library to the participants. The learning model then was a structured way of organising and encouraging families to enjoy the benefits of reading and address any reservations they might have had about using their local libraries. So it was all about getting them enthused and more comfortable in the library space. To make this work then, we worked in partnership with 2 family resource centres. You can see them there, Bagnallstown, which is also known as Winnipeg, and Forward Steps Family Resource Centre in Tullow. And in addition to this, then there was a community services centre, which is St. Catherine's, which is based in Carlow Town. Each of these areas then, in turn, they vary from very to marginally disadvantaged on the Public Deprivation Index for small areas. This was a key component, the collaboration with the centres was a key component of the project and its success. They have the expertise in adult education, community development and family support in their areas. They know the families, they have access to the hard to reach, marginalised families. So this is where the whole project hinged around this. So what happened, or how we went about this? The initial idea came up when the funding was introduced, and we contacted the centres to see would the idea be of interest to them. Once funding was confirmed, the Story Streets team was formed, and we planned and organised the programme. The team here is made up of a coordinator and project facilitators, and the facilitators then were development workers from each centre and library staff members. I'll go into more detail about the programme itself, and how it actually works and the structure. But just the basic outline is that it was an 8-week schedule or programme. We had 8 workshops. These were weekly, and they lasted 1.5 to 2 hours each. And they were supported then by the centre and library staff, and the locations alternated between the centre, where people were familiar with and comfortable with, and introducing them into the library as well. So the programme aims I've outlined here. I know there's a lot of kind of going into the background here, but I think it's important for you to kind of understand this before we kind of go into the more details of the structure of the programme itself. The programme aims. So here you can see they were really about, it was a collaborative approach, as I had said, and they were about helping families to become library members, be comfortable in their library space, and to encourage reading in the home as part of the family day. I also mentioned there the learning model, which we'll come on to, as I said, later on, but we also aimed to develop that to help community development. An external researcher was engaged for the project, so any of the findings and the resulting learning model are founded on independent and reliable information. They've been externally tested, if you like, so it's something we can really stand behind, and it's very reliable. So we can see who took part here in the programme. We had 28 families. We offered out a total of 30 places. There was 10 in each area. And we were delighted to have such a take-up. These were represented mainly by mothers, but there were 1 or 2 fathers as well, which was great. 1 to 3 children in each family. We had 43 children in total, including babies and toddlers. So you can imagine the workshops and the sessions were fairly lively. I mentioned here the traditionally hard to reach families, which I'd mentioned before. Often with the library, coming from a library perspective, there's lots of people who use our libraries, but it's the people who don't that we really, we're trying to engage in this programme. So with that, the responsibility for selecting the families rested with the centres, because they came from their existing client base. They have the expertise in this area. In some cases, they prioritised families that the staff knew would benefit from participation. And what was vitally important at this stage then was the word of mouth, the trust, and the nature of one-to-one contact with these workers and the clients or the families. From a library perspective, as I already mentioned, we were looking to engage people who had never used the library before, or had really only maybe used it for computers and printing access and printing services, which would be a very popular service that we offer, but not for borrowing or reading. So it was an attempt then to delve in there and to get a little bit more interaction with these people. Of these 28 families, we had 12 different ethnic backgrounds represented among the adults. And you can see here the countries of origin really varied, so I'm going to name them all, have a go with this anyway. So we had China, England, Ireland, Latvia, Lithuania, Pakistan, Poland, Romania, Russia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. So there was a real cultural mix, and that was something that was really noticed by those who took part. They identified that, and they saw it as very positive. 2 groups made up 78% of the total number of participants. These were Irish people, both settled and traveller, and people who were non-Irish but EU citizens. And the levels here, the literacy levels. Among adults, the levels of comprehension in English, spoken, read and written, varied significantly. Native Irish, English and African parents were judged most fluent, though several found reading and writing in English challenging. Other nationalities were more proficient in spoken English, but adequate at best in reading and writing. And we also noticed that many participants had high levels of education in their native language, several to 3rd level. So again, there's a cultural mix and and a mix in levels of literacy. Now we're just going to have a look at the format. So what we did first of all was we met as a team and we worked together to develop this format and have a look and see how it worked over the pilot. Then we tweaked this then, and that will be the learning model that I'll show you later on, which is the one we would recommend. So here you can see this is the format we developed that between us as a project team, and it consisted of 6 elements for the families to complete together during each session. The facilitators were free to adapt the workshop depending on the group's needs. And this is one thing actually they really remarked on afterwards. They really welcomed the opportunity to work outside the box, if you will, and be creative and flexible, as many of the programs run in the centres are very prescriptive in design and purpose, and they really have to follow a particular format. But here they could actually adapt as suited, and they found that really excellent way of working. So if you look at the 6 elements here, we'll go through them. The first is to read and share a core children's book. This is a really important part of the workshop, as it helped to bond the group. It energised active engagement in story time, and it provided a basis for shared activities. So this was the standard and this was the regular part of each session. Each centre, before we started, they've selected a book themselves, and they actually all picked different titles. So we had Goldilocks, Little Red Riding Hood, and Little Red Hen. Some of this would have been then so that could actually maybe, that they were more open to craft activities, things based on these books. And you can see this in the second point there. We had craft activities then related to the core book initially, and then they extended to other books. These were centred around a story box element, which is kind of similar to the story set, if you like. Families created items associated with the core book. They stored them in their story box, and then they used them as props for storytelling. On the next slide, you'll see some pictures of those story boxes that they had made. The home reading was a very important element that was really encouraged. At the end of each session, then families borrowed books. So there was a selection of books made available in the centre for the days they were in the centre, and if they were in the library, then they selected books from the library. So the focus, as I said here, was reading together at home. And it's also on encouraging independent use of the library and independent reading, if you like. Each week, families read, discussed, and shared their chosen books. And this they did at home, but they also, when they came in for their session, they did the same thing and shared everything with the rest of the group. Step 4, the photocopies from the core book, that was discarded by groups very early on in the programme, as they found the photocopies were kind of dull and discouraging. So, and that element was set aside. But each family did receive their own copy of the book, and they had that at the end to keep. The break. This is actually a really important, as you can imagine. We all like a nice break. Healthy snacks only, of course. But it was really an important element because it gave the adults and children an extra opportunity to socialise, chat, and support each other, on an informal basis and socialise together. So that was really, it was remarked upon again how important that was. And item 6 there. Each of the partner libraries provided a selection of suitable books, as I said, that the group could borrow from the centre. And when they were in the library, then the families could select and choose from their collections. But the idea behind this was to ease them gently into the borrowing habit. So we have kind of the reading habit, borrowing habit, and all that socialising then in between, which was great for their self-esteem and confidence. I had mentioned the story boxes. So here I'll give you a look at some of them. This is kind of some of our final sessions held in the libraries. So this was in week 8, and everything was kind of building towards this big get together, and it was great fun. And these were a celebration of the achievements of each group. So we had 26 families out of the 28 appeared or attended at these final events, which was great because it was in the winter. And they shared what they learned from the project. Participants were very engaged, and here you can see some of the story box. These would be Goldilocks, and so you can see the chairs and beds and Mommy Bear and Daddy Bear and a whole lot there. The lady on the top left there with the book, she's a Polish national, so she was thrilled because she actually had Goldilocks, the storybook, at home that she had read herself as a child, or was read to her. So she got up and she performed and read that to the group. But that's something she wouldn't have dreamed of doing prior to the actual course. There were a lot of performances, read, told and sung, at these final events. I do have a short video that I'm going to show you soon. I'll show you some of it anyway. Our problem at the moment is that the actual sound won't come across for some reason. So we'll see. I'll show you some of that anyway. You can get a whole feel for that and for those final events. But unfortunately, you won't get to hear the thing. Now, so that's a brief outline of how the pilot project ran. Before I go into more specific detail then on how you can actually use this in your own organisation, I just want to give you share some of the findings with you. As I said, these were, we had an external researcher, so these were actually findings from the whole group, from the centres, from the participants themselves. So as I said, they're verifiable and reliable findings. I'm not just making it up really, so I'm saying. So results, Story Streets. So it was a fun-based learning experience for the families. The parents and children valued reading together at home, spending time together as a family and visiting the local library. They found it a relaxed and welcoming experience, and they really enjoyed meeting weekly in the group to socialise and make new friends. That was a whole really important part of it. It tested the learning model, and in addition to the literacy and reading elements, the community development workers involved, they found the project helped to encourage adults and children to socialise and communicate with each other. I know this word socialise is coming up a lot, but it actually was a huge benefit of the programme. It increased participants' self-esteem and confidence, strengthened family bonds through the me time created by the workshops, and promoted cultural integration and community interaction through a common interest. As I saw there was a lot of, there was a mixture of cultures there, and you can see that, excuse me, sorry, I lost my way. This is great when it works. Okay, strengthened family bonds, yeah, and promoted cultural integration. As I said, then there was a huge cultural mix there, and people found it really interesting and great to meet people from different cultures. There's a high participation rate, as mentioned before. The attendance was great, and we were really happy with that. And the researcher found that the retention figures were in line with or above the norm for centre courses, which was great. And it introduces participants to book borrowing. 16 out of 28 families, so that's almost 60% actually borrowed twice or more, maybe from the library and from the centres. For those who didn't borrow, it was thought that low literacy levels and English as a new language for the parents were elements here, or reasons for those not borrowing. And there were interesting outcomes then for the library and community services. You can see here I have a few comments there. I'll just give you a moment to read those. They're from different facilitators during the programme. And they highlight these outcomes. The project revealed the shared concerns, complementary skills, and the good practices available across both sectors. So new relationships were built, and community services, and I'd say the library service staff as well, experienced new ways of working. And the development workers, they saw how book-based activities can positively affect people. Now, I hope you've read those, but you'll be getting a copy of the report or the presentation later on. Now, to the most important people, the participants themselves. So I think they have pictures and some quotes here that speak for themselves. So we're coming on to the parents. So there we have our cup of tea. As you can see, it was important. The non-judgmental parents. This is a lady who has an autistic son, and she found it was a wonderful outlet for the two of them. You know, there's non-judgmental, as she says there. He was accepted, and she actually really felt the group very great. She got great comfort from the group. The children loved the library. I hadn't been before, which is what we were all about. And again, the me time. I love to sit down with my kids. This is the only chance I get in the week to be so close with my child. So they're lovely comments. And we'll come on to some of my favourite photographs of the children themselves. Okay, so as you can see, they had great fun. They really, really did enjoy the programme. Again, we have this reading to me at bedtime. I like when Mommy reads, which is great to hear. Our library is warm and cosy. And Leo brought home 1 book and he's used it already. And Tommy then brought home 6 books and a DVD. So as I can say, they really got a great kick out of the programme. So the conclusions from the pilot itself. The model works. It can be applied to different groups and different agencies. And the public library then can be recognised as an important agency for community development. Now, I did mention I have this short video. What I'll do maybe is I'll play it. I'll play some of it anyway, and I can kind of talk through it, and I can kind of tell you what's happening here. This is our Harlow group, and they are, you see, Stickman. This is them coming back with the books they had read during the week and telling us about them. Here again, you can see this huge cultural mix. And they're having great fun. These are 2 mothers who wouldn't have read much at all. She was saying that she actually wasn't on her own. She felt that, you know, by being in the group, she realised that she wasn't the only one. And she got great confidence from that. This is our Tullow group. And here they're doing their arts and crafts. This is Sandra, the facilitator, and she did a lot of work with this group. This group would have had the largest number maybe of non-English speaking people, so which was a different challenge here. That lady there was mentioned a great opportunity for teamwork and family, and it was a great opportunity for them all. Here we have Tommy. You might recognise him from one of the pictures there. So as I said, all age groups, healthy snacks. And this little girl actually wrote some of her own books, which were great. Magella, the facilitator. And again, more healthy snacks. I'll just leave this run, so I want to give you a little look at the final events. Then they're coming up. There's a little bit showing them. Again, apologies for lack of sound. There's the daddy in the background. They're talking about the kids. Children love it, going to the library, and how nerve-wracking maybe the first session was coming in to meet the group. Here we have just a little bit of a song here. She's singing from Elsa, Let It Go. And this is Zoe, Teresa's daughter, and she's reading from The Little Red Hen. Golda reading from the book that she wrote herself. And this is from our Tullow group. He's actually reading a book to the rest of the group in the library on the final day. As you can see, this is something they really wouldn't have done before, so it was great for them. And these are our story boxes. The Bagnallstown group here, and you can see the beds and the chairs, and the baby again asleep. Okay, so I hope that's given you some kind of an idea of you know, just kind of a feel for the program. I know, unfortunately, we had no sound, as I said, but you know, even the pictures there and the movement, you can see how engaged people were, how much they were enjoying, the smiles on their faces. So, you know, it's a good testament to actually the program itself. As I said, Teresa will be coming on in a little while, and she'll tell you a little bit about her experience. So that will maybe bring it a little bit more to life for you. And again, if there's any questions or comments as we're going along, please do use the facility there on the screen. We'll be happy to answer anything there. So the steps in running, how do you run your own project? So if this has kind of inspired you a little bit, if you think maybe it's something you might be interested in doing, here's a couple of things. Start off with there's 6 points here to kind of get you up and running. Story Streets coordinator, I'd suggest whether you're running this with one group or several groups, make sure you have a coordinator, because that person will help things to run smoothly and will keep in regular contact with facilitators and with everybody and make sure things aren't being missed. And meet with relevant library staff members. In this case, I would suggest the Right to Read coordinator. I've let them know that I'm kind of saying this today, so if you want to contact them, I'll be able to give you the contact details. If you speak with them and maybe an account librarian, engage them with the program, and then you can kind of get it running from there. Establish your team with facilitators from your centre and your library service. They'll be on your Story Streets team, and that's actually vital and the program running for you. As mentioned previously, though, responsibility though as for the participating families will lie with the centre staff. So as local experts in this area, this is kind of the correct fit, we think. And we also found then to agree your schedule. So just have a chat about this. You can change this around. Flexibility is a huge thing in this. But just to have a schedule in mind. One area highlighted, you know, by the research was the need for training, especially for the facilitators before the program starts. Specifically in storytelling, using books and engaging families in reading. This would be something maybe as library staff we'd be a little bit more used to, but it's very important to kind of get this up and running and for everybody to engage in this type of training beforehand. Always evaluate the project then. I know you're well used to doing that, but just to review progress and identify ways maybe of moving forward in the future, building on the results of your project. Here we have the basic template. So this is what, as I said, kind of with tweaks and things like this after the project, after the pilot, this is what we came up with, or what we would suggest as a model for running this in a centre. You can see we have it based on an 8-week programme, and the sessions alternate between the centre and the library itself. The first meeting is held in the centre because that's the most comfortable centre for participants. In this layout, we've kind of said five sessions in the centre, 3 in the library, but depending on how comfortable your group are, and if they settle really well and they're very comfortable in the library space, you could make this 4 and 4 and alternate every second week between them. We recommend having 2 facilitators who run the whole series of workshops together, again for continuity. And again, one of those facilitators from the centre and one from the library. And it's very vital that that happens, and it kind of maintains that link. In week 5, you might see we had story time with the storyteller. And as we were grant funded, that was a professional storyteller that we used. But you know, it'll work equally well with a member of library staff who's comfortable with storytelling, or even somebody from the actual resource centre or community centre themselves. Again, week 8, that's a really important element. As you can see, you know, from a little bit from the video there, might give you a flavour of that. Everybody really enjoys that, and it's worthwhile putting a little bit of work into that one. This is just a recap of the session content that I had mentioned already, but it's just to reiterate that these are consistent elements. They all focus on reading and working together. And the familiarity of the formula helps the group to become, again, more comfortable and secure. So it's just important that there's a consistent element to it. And our top tips for running the programme itself. First thing is, and we've learned these from experience, so I can share it with you. Schedule the workshops. The scheduling of the weekly sessions is very important. The date and the day and time needs to be consistent. Encourage participation and attendance. And it's really best from the outset if you tie this in with library opening times. So make sure that everything happens at the same time, same day every week. This worked very well for us, as the results show, so that would just be something that I highly recommend. How to engage participants. Relating activities to the core book, as I mentioned already, that encourages familiarity and eases families in. As their confidence increases, then the group can settle in and introduce other books, but just to kind of concentrate maybe around the core book initially there. Be flexible with content. Don't be afraid to be flexible there. Change things to suit the groups. And I'm sure, as you all know, always have a backup plan in case something's not working out or doesn't go right. Just be careful of that. Keep encouraging, please keep encouraging and borrowing from the library. The participants do need this. It's not a familiar space. It's something they need to get used to, and habits do take a while to form. So we would really like just the encouragement is very important. And to celebrate, as I said again, it's a celebration. Again, as our pilot was funded, we had incentives and we were able to budget for incentives at the end, that would include a souvenir booklet and book vouchers. But actually, they were warmly received, but we actually discovered that they weren't actually vital to participation in the programme. And even the community leaders themselves were taken aback by the high levels of enthusiasm for books, storytelling and reading. They really hadn't expected a book-based activity to be so popular. And that's something they shared with us after the fact, but actually, it was a really interesting find there, I think. I just have a little quick checklist here for you, just in case any of these kind of fall by the wayside, just to be careful here on these. And the library staff can advise on the core book selection, they compare suitable collections for the centre, and provide the registration forms and any other material you need from the library. And I think there, yeah, just about the facilitator workshop again, just as a little reminder. And how much did it cost? I haven't a breakdown here of costs, but again, it needn't be an expensive programme for anybody else to run. Our pilots included facilitators, the researcher, with plain English editing, the project record in the form of booklets and printed materials, the logo and so on. But for yourselves, if you wanted to run this as a programme or were interested in it, you have in-house facilitators. Costs involved then with maybe refreshments, initial training, professional storyteller if you wanted to do that or go down that route. Maybe craft materials, but you might have already have those in your centres and in the libraries. So it needn't be hugely expensive. And again, if you have your centre and your library working together, that's a shared cost as well. So I really think for the return and from what yourselves and the participants get from the programme, it's actually, I can't recommend it highly enough. Really have to address the current restrictions, because if you were thinking of taking this on, you might say, well, you can't do anything at the moment, which we can't, but I mean, it's not going to last forever. I did have a quick look through the library, from a library perspective, and what the restrictions are. At level 3, there is a book and browse and a call and collect element available, but depending on the size of your library service and where it is, it'd be worth talking to them and see how they're fixed. But I think definitely if we're at level 1 and 2, there is potential here for actually running the programme, because we'll be open with protective measures in place with maximum numbers depending on capacity, but it is something that could be worked at. So I just to have don't let that put you off. Okay, and we'll be coming up to trees in a minute. Just to have a little run through the resources here. As I said, there's reports available. I have a booklet and a brochure, so I've passed them on to Fergus and he'll send them on to everybody there today. Local Right to Read coordinator, if you need information, just contact me. All my contact details are on the final slide here, so you can email me or give me a call. The logo, I've been in touch with our designers and they have no problem at all with people using the logo, which is a really nice one, so encourage people to use that. I can send that on to you again. And the training, I can give you information and links to different training programs that we've had and different trainers we've used for different, for storytelling and for engaging with picture books and so on. Again, feel free to contact me. You can see my email there on the final slide. And I think I can really take a little break from all the talking now. I'm going to pass you over to Teresa. So before finishing up and answering any questions, Teresa's coming along. Her daughter Zoe, who's our little red hen, took part in our pilot project in Carlowtown, and she'd like to tell you about her experience. So I'll leave it over to you, Teresa, there. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, Trish?
I can.
Perfect. Okay, well, as Trish has already said, I took part in the programme in Carlow in St. Catherine's. The reason I signed up for the programme, I literally was in St. Catherine's Centre, and I seen a poster on the notice board that just explained about Story Streets, and I just said, you know what, that might be nice, because I was kind of feeling like I hadn't been doing a whole lot with my daughter and life was busy, and I said, you know, it might be something different. So I just said, right, we'll go along. But when I got there, I was really surprised. Like, I enjoyed it much more than I thought. I suppose we sat down and I felt like we got reintroduced to books. Like, I realized only when I got there that, like, we had been kind of taken over with televisions and iPads and consoles, and, you know, you didn't take too much time to sit and read. And also I realized that for the 2 hours I was there, I had my phone put away. I was sitting beside my daughter. We were colouring together, reading together, partaking together. And like, it also made me realise that even when I was at home, I might be cleaning after work or cooking. And while she'd read, I'd say, oh, read to me while I cook or clean. But I never really engaged with her. She was just reading and I was saying, that's great. And it was done and it was one thing ticked off. But like, we actually sat and enjoyed the book. And I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed listening to her read. Like, so, and then we got to meet loads of people. I suppose people from all different backgrounds, people I would never have spoke to before or never had the opportunity to speak to before. It was lovely. We were all sharing information on everything from other courses or things that were going on around the county. Then what we enjoyed the most, well, I actually asked my daughter this morning what she enjoyed, and she said, Mommy, I loved, this is funny, I'm going to say it in her own words and then I'll elaborate, that when we were doing the arts and crafts, we could do whatever we liked. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you know, Mum, Magella just gave us all the arts and crafts and said, think about what it means to you in this book, and you make it whatever is in your imagination or whatever you want it to be. She said, because Mum, in school we're told maybe draw a rainbow, it has to be pink, blue, green, and you just do it. But Mum, I really got to think about what I wanted it to be. And I said, God, that was really, really insightful for me as a mother, because I never thought about that. Sometimes we just we don't kind of center things around our children. We kind of just tell them what to do as opposed to guiding them and letting them decide. So that was really, really good. And as Trish had mentioned, I felt like the program was very flexible with the content. Like that, if something they were told, you can basically, your imagination, it's your group, and do whatever you see fit, or whatever it kind of opens up for you. The difference it made to me and Zoe, like I said, also when I got Zoe joined up with the library, I started picking books, because I said, well, she was doing it, she was taking so long, I said, sure, I might as well get something for myself while I'm here. So it brought me back to reading. I had always liked reading, but then life comes and you grow up and there wasn't a whole lot of time for reading. But I started to make time when she was doing it. Then when I was putting her to bed, we started kind of bringing the books that we picked from Story Streets to bed. And Zoe started reading to me. And I couldn't believe how much I loved it. Like, I was saying to her, Zoe, come on up, will you read a bit to me? Come on, read a bit more. Generally, I was like, oh, I'm not able, Zoe, to read, I'm too tired. And like, it was a real bonding thing. And like, it became really less of a chore, and I mean that. Like, we were putting away the iPads. Generally, I was saying, oh, Zoe, go on your iPad for a few minutes, I'm too tired to read. But it brought us closer. Like I was lying on the bed beside her and she was reading to me. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, the library was much more comfortable. Another thing I wanted to say was when Zoe went into school and spoke about I suppose the reading program is what she was calling it. I had a parent come up to me and ask me about it and do they think because their little girl had been, I suppose, intrigued after Zoe telling her, and that was a family of three, and also a family that came from a background of parents who didn't have literacy. So they, on behalf of Zoe's word, they joined as well. So Zoe and her little friend then had each other, and they loved it. Also, I felt for myself, it kind of brought out my inner child. Like I started to draw and read and colour and enjoy it. Like it was something very relaxing about it. Like I think in the rush of the world, we forget that we were once children, and that kind of, you know, there's something very nice about sitting down with your child colouring and reading. And like that 2 hours a week now, I have even since that was nearly a whole year ago, I have that time marked out now that I give Zoe to colour and read and chat, and because like it's only 2 hours, but it's very important for me and for her. So you know, it was great. Also Zoe, I found for us, Zoe got great what's the word, not only encouragement, confidence, self-esteem. Like when Magella told Zoe she could be, when we did the little play on the last day, she could be the little red hen. So Zoe loved, I am the little red hen. So she went in, do you know, she learned the little words, and it gave her, she stood up and maybe in front of 20 people and read. Do you know, something that she would never have done? And it was great for her confidence, and she felt very proud. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I need to add or I didn't? Yeah, I just felt we kind of, this program brought a lot of things back to basics. Like there was no cost, so that wasn't going to be a problem for me or anybody else that may have felt, you know, you look at things, oh no, 20 hours a week, I can't really do that. Or, you know, if there was no cost, you didn't need anything only to turn up with yourself and your child. There was nothing that you needed to make sure you had. And you know, no computers. And also when that lovely little girl in our group wrote the book, she made a little book. All the other kids, like Zoe went home that week, Mommy, would I be able to write a book like, say, Mary did? I said, of course you would. So then my Zoe drew a few pictures and threw together a few little words that was basically a copy of the other girls, but it made her confident. And then week by week, they were all trying to do it. So we just learned a lot from each other. Now I know I'm probably waffling, but it was brilliant. And I think for me, the main thing was realizing how much I got from Zoe reading to me. Like even now, I actually still often say to her, Zoe, do you want to read to me? Like I find it really relaxing. So yeah, I hope if there's anyone wants to ask me anything, and I definitely recommend it. I loved it. And at the end of the 8 weeks, we were all kind of sad that it was over. So yeah, it was. And another thing, sorry, that I just want to add, do you know what, the library actually became a day out in our house. Like we'd say, you know, my child really, and sorry, is there someone talking there? Trish, can you still hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, you're fine.
I just thought I heard a good bit of noise in the background. I didn't know if I was to stop or something. But
No.
the last thing I wanted to add was, yeah, the library became a day out. Like we'd kind of take a stroll downtown. You could go whenever, whatever one the evenings to the library, and then even a little treat on the way home. And it was just, I don't know, it was lovely. So it really opened us back up to reading and took us away from the iPads, and it gave me, I suppose, it made me stop and think that those 2 hours were worth so much to me and my child. So that's about the height of it now.
Teresa, thanks. That's wonderful. Lovely to hear from you.
Yeah, well, it's true. Every bit of it is true, Trish. I thank you all very much because it was fantastic.
Well, you're more than welcome. You were a great crowd. It was just lovely to see you all enjoying yourselves so much.
Yeah.
I'm
looking at my picture on the screen there and my mouth laughing. I definitely enjoyed myself looking at the laugh.
I put you in the middle. I wasn't going to tell people there, but yeah.
Sure, that's okay.
Read it on the screen there with Zoe. Right, Fergus, will we move on? Do we have any questions there? Or
Yeah, we do. I just want to say thanks so much, Teresa. That was wonderful to hear when you said things like the library was a day out for yourself and your daughter. That was just fantastic to hear, and what you talked about, her confidence and self-esteem is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So it's a real credit to Trish and the other coordinators who put on the projects in Carlo and Tullow and when you Bug. So it was lovely to hear you, Teresa, there. And thanks a million for agreeing to contribute. And because what you said there must be massively motivating for the other people around the country listening in this morning, thinking, let's do this in Carlow or Mayo or Donegal or wherever they are. You know, what Trish read out from the feedback that the researcher found, it was just fantastic. The numbers who wanted to go and the numbers who turned up each week, that is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. So Trish, thanks so much for sharing. An absolutely wonderful project. And Teresa, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and your positivity. And well done. Teresa, if you stay on the line, I'm just going to flick to the questions and I'll read out a few questions. I'm not sure what we have yet, but I'm sure we still have about 10 minutes or so. So, Dorina Malloy is asking, this is absolutely brilliant. Well done to all in Carlow. Having a serious think about how we can make this work in Mayo. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was thinking. It's just people must be thinking, how can we do this in our own town, our own library? And Trish mentioned working with, was it the family resource centres you worked with, Trish?
It was, yeah, there's 2 family resource centres, and St. Catherine's in Carlow would be its community services. So they have kind of a lot going on there. It's community services centre there. Really, so Dorina, then if you're thinking of that, we just have a think about how you could work it from a library perspective. You need to be able to free up somebody to actually do it with the group. But also then talk to your family resource centres, show them the information, give them the information, and they can talk to any of us or get in touch with any of the local here to part. Again, I can give you those details. But I think they really loved it, so it's just a case of getting it to work then, between yourselves. But I'm sure they'd take up the opportunity if you give them a shout.
And if there isn't a family resource centre locally in your town, you could talk to the adult literacy service. They often participate in projects like this, and they've experienced people too. Maria Stakelum is asking, what did you find was the best time or date to have the meetings, e.g. after school on Saturdays, etc.? That's from Maria Stakelum in Limerick.
Teresa, when was yours?
Ours was, I think, a Tuesday afternoon, or like after school. So I think maybe it was about 3:30 till 5:30 on a Tuesday, and I found that was a very good time.
Yeah, I think after schools was the best time, because we figured homework would be done, and yeah, as far as I can remember, then each of them had it in the evening. Do you think such that worked well for you?
Sorry, were you talking to me, Trish?
Yeah, no, well, I'm just saying in general, just chatting about it. You found that worked well. It was homework wasn't an issue then or anything?
Yeah, no, it was perfect. And I think Tuesday was, Tuesday was a nice day. You were kind of back into the swing of the week, and it was I think Mondays, I don't know, it wouldn't be a wonderful day. I think you're only getting through the day of a Monday. So maybe midweek, Tuesday or Wednesday, I found was a good day.
Yeah. And again, Maria, as I said earlier, I'd recommend then if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday when the library is open a little bit late, because if the session is going, a little bit after 5, just to tie it in with that.
Okay, Trish, there's another question here from Maeve Rogan. Hi,
Maeve.
Trish, Maeve here. Did you engage external facilitators, or were the readings and crafts and meetings run by centre staff and library staff?
It was just solely by centre staff, by the facilitators who were doing the workshop. So they were very resourceful. They went online and they got lots of ideas, crafts and things like that to do. Some books, if you look up now, I didn't get a chance to check the websites, but I know there are certain books that you can actually get ready-made activities to go with. So that would be something maybe to consider. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, there's a few other comments here that are kind of saying well done. So Kay O'Regan saying, Trish, that was fantastic. Teresa, thank you. Pat Hoban is saying, very interesting project with huge potential for encouraging participation, discussion and reading. Important insights from Teresa and Trish. Well done, excellent work.
Thank you.
So well done, Teresa and Trish there. Alison Wells, Teresa's talk is really great, very clear and informative, touching and inspiring. Great insight into the program. Well done, Teresa. Thanks. Thank you, Alison, for those comments. I totally agree with you. Patrick Thompson saying that was great. Dorena Malloy saying, welcome to Teresa, our new library champion. There you go, Teresa. You're right, actually. You're right. You need someone to champion it, and in the 5 minutes, Teresa absolutely sold it. You know. So well done, Teresa.
I'm only telling the truth, lads, honestly.
Well, we can hear that in your voice that it was the truth. Patrick Thompson saying, that was wonderful, Teresa. My question is, it seems like there was a relatively broad age group of kids. How did you engage with them all, the different age groups?
Initially, the idea was maybe 4 to 9-year-old children. And that extended, so there was, as you said, there is a broad range. I think it went up to 11 at some stages. We found a way, and it was recommended actually in the report, would be maybe of, I think that some of the older children ended up kind of helping the younger children, and they acted as, you know, little kind of helpers, you know, in at the sessions. Teresa, I think there was a good mix in your group, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. And you know what? Initially, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I first went in, now my daughter, I suppose she would have been 8, but she'd kind of be a bit more mature. And when we saw that the book everybody would be doing would be The Little Red Hen, I thought a bit, oh God, I don't know about this now. But like I said, everything was left to your imagination, and you got to make what you like of it. You know, it wasn't just about the book. The book was only the starting point. So I think from small babies to bigger kids, it just, I can't even explain it, but it just worked, because you could make what you like. I suppose the smaller babies might have drew a scribble on a page, and that was their work for The Little Red Hen. Then as you've seen some of like the bigger girls that would have painted things and made things, so you made it what you wanted of it from whatever age you were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense, Teresa. Thanks for that. And I think there are a few more tips there somewhere on that topic, Pat, in the report.
Linda Galbraith says, hi, great to hear a participant's view of the scheme and the benefits she and her daughter gained. Thank you. That's from Linda. Deirdre Crichton says, how many of those families have continued to use the libraries?
Well, unfortunately, the program finished kind of coming up to Christmas. We kind of kept an eye on those. Some of them did. There was a little bit of fall off over Christmas and, you know, into January. We had earmarked March to have another get together and to just meet up and have kind of a bit more of a little celebration to finish everything off and present the reports to people and so on, which didn't happen because of lockdown. So really at the moment I couldn't say, because COVID kind of intervened. It is definitely something that to kind of keep the habit going would need a little bit more support, and we're aware of that. But as a starting point, I think it's really good. And under normal circumstances, there would have been a fairly good retention rate, I'd imagine. Teresa, I know you came to the library, and I did see other people afterwards come to the library.
Yeah.
From your perspective, how would you find? I know we're closed now, but would you think some of the participants would have kind of kept membership up?
Oh God, yeah. Like I feel like the bulk of the work is to inform people that the library's there, make it comfortable as you did. Like you signed them up so they seen that that's not a big issue. Like it's easy, that could seem daunting if people didn't know how simple it is really. And I think it's like anything, once you introduce someone to something and they have a good experience, That's a lot of what all, like a lot of people only need that, Trish. And then
Yeah.
they can take it from there themselves once they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read out a few more comments here, and we can go another 5 minutes. Anyone who has to log off can. So Yvonne Marathon has a few comments. She said, noted the fear factor mentioned for some in visiting the library. Great to address this. Superb program. Well done, Trish and Teresa. Liaison with resource centres seems to have been the key. Sinead McCardle has a question or a comment. Thank you so much for all this fabulous information. I'm a homeschool community liaison teacher and would love to try and set up something similar in our community. That's what we want.
Yes.
That's it,
Yeah.
Sinead. That's why Trish and Teresa shared this morning. We want you guys to start up something in your town or community. Kim Taylor saying, hi, well done to all in Carlow. Was a fantastic project. Just wondering how you came up with the name and why. It was lovely to see the video of the children and to hear firsthand Teresa's experience. Thanks, from Kim in Leitrim. So where did you come up with that name and why?
The title or the name came when I started here. I'm in Carlow a few years, and initial few months I went around just to meet people, around the resource centres and things like that. And some of them mentioned this program that they had done called Healthy Streets. Again, that was another pilot program and involved, healthy eating and cooking and so on in the resource centres. And it just struck in my mind at the time, but that's something that there was a germ of an idea there. So when the opportunity, with the funding came along, I just kind of came back to that model and we discussed it here. And I kind of said, could we do something, streets, and just a bit of brainstorming. We call it Story Streets, because we thought it kind of encapsulated everything really. So that's how it came about.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up. I'll just read out a few more people. Kathy O'Mahony, Sheila Travers, Aidan Kerr, and Eileen O'Connor have all said things like, fantastic ideas, well done, very inspiring. Thanks so much, Teresa and Trish, that type of thing. So it just leaves me to say thanks so much, Trish and Teresa, for sharing a really wonderful, rich project that's very copyable or adaptable to other communities and towns. It was fantastic to hear from you. I'm sure it's motivated and encouraged those listening in. And thanks everyone for listening in. And I just quickly want to mention 3 more family learning webinars that we have coming up this week. So 1 or 2 people mentioned storytelling. We've Paul Timoney, who is a storyteller, and he's going to be doing ideas and tips for telling stories via Zoom. So kind of lockdown, but Paul is so engaging that his tips you can take into hopefully the lockdown lists in the new year. Then tomorrow from 2 to 3, we've got another library connected project. It's called the Storytime Project, and that's with 3 facilitators, I suppose. Joan Kiley from Marino Institute of Education, Sheila Kelly, who's from a library somewhere in North Dublin, might be Coolock, Darndale, I can't remember where Sheila is based, and Peter Loughney, who's a homeschool community liaison teacher in Coolock. So they're going to talk about the Storytime Project. There might be echoes of your project, Trish, with that. Okay. And then finally, on Friday morning at 11, Eleanor Neff, who's an adult literacy tutor in County Kerry, is going to be giving a webinar on building resilience for you and your child. So all those are free. They're on over the next few days. So if you'd like to tune in, do so. So once again, thanks very much to Trish and Teresa. That was fantastic.
Bye now.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye, Teresa.